Hello and welcome. Today we're diving into a really powerful piece by the philosopher Akil Mbembe. It connects the dots between history, capitalism, and what it even means to be human in our world right now. Now, this is a heavy one, but stick with me because the ideas here are absolutely crucial for understanding our present moment. So, let's kick things off with this really haunting quote from Frantz Fanon. He had this dream of a new world for a decolonized Africa. But the reality he found was still echoing with the pain of the past. This stifling noonday he's talking about, that persistent shadow of history that just won't go away, that feeling, that's exactly what we're digging into today. And that leads us right to the big question at the heart of this whole analysis. How in the world did this big, noble, centuries-long search for a new human get so completely twisted up with the brutal histories of slavery and colonialism? Okay, so to get this, you really have to look at the timeline. The whole conversation really gets going back in the 18th century, and it's happening inside the framework of Western humanism. Then you fast forward to the 19th century and boom, the worker becomes the central figure. But here's the twist. Now, in our time, the very same logic that was once applied to a specific race is starting to go global. It's starting to affect all of us, and it's creating some really unsettling new problems. All right, let's get into the real meat of this critique. We're about to explore the dark, kind of hidden underside of Western humanism. So when we talk about Western humanism here, we're not talking about some beautiful, abstract ideal. No. We're talking about a system that, in practice, became the very thing, the very cauldron, where racial difference, the whole idea of blackness, was cooked up. And the point is, this wasn't some kind of unfortunate accident. It was pretty much baked right into the system. So how does this machine actually work? Well, capitalism is framed here as a kind of apparatus of capture. It has four basic moves. First, it has this compulsion to categorize everything, to put it all in neat little boxes. Then, it separates what it thinks is useful from what it considers waste. Third, it measures everything, creating these strange equivalencies between totally different things. People, animals, rocks, you name it. And finally, once everything is sorted and measured, it extracts value. And this is absolutely crucial. This process of ordering and extracting always produces waste, or what's called detritus. So if you look at it this way, a huge part of Black history can be seen as this profound, unending struggle against being defined and treated as that very waste. Yeah, but if you were on the receiving end of this, the experience was totally different. For the enslaved and the colonized, this supposedly noble idea of humanism didn't feel noble at all. It felt like a machine of violence, a monstrous system that had the form of wolves' jaws. Okay, so when you have a system this brutal, you're gonna get some powerful pushback, right? And that's exactly what happened. Two major schools of thought popped up to critique this whole framework from the outside: Afropessimism and Afrofuturism. And you can see here they are two totally different responses. On one hand, you have Afropessimism. It basically argues that this racial conflict is permanent. It's just a core feature of our world that can't be fixed or reformed. But on the other hand, you've got Afrofuturism, which takes a completely different road. It just throws out the entire category of humanism, says it's broken, and tells us to imagine something brand new. And I really want to land on this point because it's a huge deal. Afrofuturism isn't trying to fix humanism or, make it more inclusive. It's saying the whole project is bankrupt. The whole thing is broken beyond repair. Let's just move on and build something else entirely. And in this vision, it's this wild idea that the historical experience of being treated like an object, the condition of the Negro in the system, actually becomes a weird kind of blueprint for a future where the lines between human and object start to blur for everybody. The human isn't this fixed thing anymore. It's a future possibility. And our destiny isn't just tied to Earth, but to the cosmos in this kind of grand reconciliation of all existence. Okay, pay attention here, because this is where all that history suddenly becomes super relevant to, well, pretty much everyone living today. The whole logic of race is starting to change shape. And this slide right here, this is the key transformation. We see this distinction between the surface Negro, the historical Black person whose body was used for labor, and a brand new category, the depth Negro. And this is so important. This is no longer about skin color. It's a universal condition. It's about being made superfluous, about being someone that global capital just has no use for anymore. And boom, there it is. That's the punchline of the whole argument. The very condition of being treated as disposable, as an object. The condition that was once reserved for Black people? Well, that logic is now going global in our modern age. And if you thought that was wild, the analysis gets even stranger. It argues that capitalism is now kind of merging with animism. You know, that ancient belief that things like rocks and trees have souls? Think about it. We treat our machines, our data, our algorithms as if they have their own intentions, their own souls, right? The line between people and things is getting blurrier than ever. So, where does that leave us? What on earth does this mean for our future? Let's get into the final and honestly pretty unsettling ideas here. This brings us to a massive, mind-bending paradox of the 21st century. As capital gets more and more abstract, more automated, it doesn't need human bodies in the same way. And the result is this huge, growing class of people who are slaves without masters. They're not owned by anyone, but they're not really free either. This is the world we're living in now, what's being called the technotronic age. It's a time where our very humanity is being translated into abstract code. We're basically fused with our machines, our artificial brains. The screen isn't just a window we look through anymore, it's the place where reality is actually being created. And as all this happens, real power, real decision-making gets shifted away from us to these remote places, to specialists and systems we can't even see or control. So that leaves us with some really deep questions. I mean, what does it even mean to chart your own course, to have a destiny when the human is just one force among many, competing with algorithms and AIs and these massive non-human systems? And at the exact same moment that technology and capital are connecting us all, we're also seeing new walls go up everywhere, new divisions. So how do we build a sense of a shared future, of working together, on a planet that we now know is fragile and finite? And this is the last thought I want to leave you with, and it's a big one. Our technology now creates and erases time in a flash. It floods us with information, but it makes it harder to build the kind of shared memory, the shared story that a democracy really needs to survive. So what happens to us, to our societies, when our ability to remember just can't keep up? It's a heavy question for sure, and one to really think about.